Hello and welcome back to another short webinar in our Parent Hub webinar series. In this webinar, we'll be focusing on supporting teen well-being, specifically looking at some of the factors influential around substance use. We invite you now to view our opening clip. So thank you for the time taken to join us to look at this specific area of supporting teen well-being. As always, the aim of our Parent webinar series is to remind you how significant your influence is on your child's life and encourage you to stay connected and informed. You're a crucial role model and your attitudes around substance use are very important. Risk and protective factors is a term you'll hear throughout the webinar. So to create some context around this, let's have a look at what risk and protective factors are. So we know that young people's behaviour is influenced by a variety of factors. These factors can either be positive or negative, and they're often referred to as risk and protective factors. A protective factor reduces the risk of alcohol or drug use, and a risk factor is something at play in our child's life that increases the risk of drug or alcohol use. So I'd invite you to look at this seesaw image or think of a scales image in terms of balancing or the sway around these factors. The aim being always to try and build more protective factors and less risk factors into our child. Factors can lead a young person either towards using drug or alcohol or away from drug and alcohol use. Some examples of influencing factors can be internal or individual factors. For example, self-esteem, where low self-esteem might pose a risk factor around substance use, but adequate or good self-esteem levels been a really solid protective factor around substance use for the individual. Then we have immediate family or external factors, like for example trusting relationships, where there is a presence of trusting relationships, that's been a protective factor. And if there is a lack of trusting relationships, been a potential risk factor. Then outside of us, just immediately in our social circles, we have social and community factors, like for example school experience. A positive school experience again being a really solid, really helpful protective factor around substance use, and a not so good school experience potentially becoming a risk factor. Of these factors apply to other behaviours in our child's life, such as relationships, their coping skills, sexual health, etc. But in relation to substance use, we have some examples of specific protective factors and risk factors for your reference. So you'll see on the list here of protective factors, we have things like good social supports, communication skills and ability, been involved in sports and hobbies, positive role models in our life, and healthy rules, boundaries and consequences been really well established and evidence-based protective factors around substance use. Then we have on the risk factors list things like low self-esteem, lack of parental supervision, a poor school experience, unmet support needs, things like access and availability to substances and substance use in the home or community pose as risk factors. It's important to remember that we all have risk and protective factors at play in our lives, and that it's never too late to build on protective factors or to put new protective factors in place. And quite automatically, as we build or increase protective factors, there's a decreasing effect on the risk factors at play in our child's life. Some of the statistics highlighted in our opening clip on this webinar reflect the relationship between wellbeing factors and substance use. And we're going to explore some of these key well-being and lifestyle elements over the duration of our webinar. So if we were to focus on a few specific areas, like for example, sleep and sleep quality, communication and support, phones and screen time and devices, and exercise and interests. We'll take these 4 sections now over the next few minutes to look specifically at what current evidence is showing us around these areas in young persons' lives and where we can build in protective factors. So in relation to sleep, we know that sleep is a really important element for our emotional and mental well-being, for our health and development overall. We know that evidence shows that teens who sleep less than 6 hours per night are 8 times more likely to feel anxious and depressed. We know that teens who experience sleep problems are 5 times more likely to report poor mental health, and that teens who get more than 8 hours sleep are 5 times more likely to have higher self-esteem. So obviously we're aiming for that 5 to 10 hours per night of uninterrupted good sleep to boost self-esteem, physical, mental, emotional well-being. From our Planet Youth data survey, you can see that this graph shows that young people who are sleeping more are reporting improvements and better quality in their physical health, their mental health, and in their school engagement. You can see where students who are sleep deprived, down in a sleep deficit of less than 6 hours per night, are all reporting less physical health, poorer mental health, and lower school engagement scores. So there's considerable evidence to show that teens require sleep quality to help their brains and bodies grow well. We know that sleep will affect their ability to learn and remember, as well as their relationships personally, with families and in friendships. And evidence shows that the teens who get a good night's sleep do better in school and generally feel better within themselves. So during autumn time and back to school time, the months of September and October, we have a very natural opportunity to set routines and structures around bedtime in the home. And there are many other factors, of course, that impact sleep quality. But we know when we see the reports of 55% of young people in our Western region in counties Galway, Mayo, and Roscommon reporting not getting enough sleep, when we know that 35% are reporting being out after midnight in the last week, and about 80% reporting having a phone with them in their bedroom at night, that these are all significant factors that are influencing sleep quality and sleep considerations. So Planet Youth is the Icelandic primary prevention model around substance use, and we have been integrating that into the west of Ireland, into counties Mayo, Galway and Roscommon over a number of years. So you'll notice here from this graph, when we look back at previous surveys and the reporting of young people, 15 and 16-year-olds in our region, around reporting that they're getting 8 hours or more of sleep per night, we can see that there's been it's beginning to decline. So unfortunately, we can see that it's just ebbing down slightly over the last few years, but we ideally would like to see that graph moving up, that young people are getting better quality and more sleep. We can see boys getting slightly more sleep than our girls are reporting. We drill down into this information and look at the breakdown of sleep, we can see that on average, just about 45% are getting 8 hours plus sleep per night. We know that the girls are slightly in deficit there. And of course, there's a strong relationship between sleep quality and phones and devices in bedrooms at night. And we'll be looking at that issue in just a couple of minutes. We can see that 8% of young people are in active sleep deficit, where they're getting less than 6 hours of sleep per night. We know that teens are in a stage of fast growth and development. They need good quality sleep for health and brain development, and we know that over half are not getting enough sleep. You can see the gender breakdown here on this slide, where we notice that girls are getting slightly less sleep than boys. Another significant concern is the prevalence of phones and devices in bedrooms at night time. And we see from the bottom part of this graph, that up to 80% of young people are reporting having a phone with them in their bedroom at night time. Notice too that young people are reporting staying out quite late into the night, quite regularly, when asked on the survey around staying out until midnight or beyond midnight, at least once or more in the past week. This was the response from young people. Staying out late is an issue for our teens. It impacts and impairs on their sleep time and sleep quality, and it unfortunately is an issue that's on the rise. So you'll see the graph there from previous surveys back as far as 2018, and we can see that this is a growing issue of concern, particularly for the boys, but overall for all young people. In relation to what can be done to address this issue, we have some guidance from our Planet Youth Parent Guidelines booklet that breaks down suggested bedtimes. It recommends that teenagers are getting a minimum of 8 to 10 hours of good quality undisrupted sleep per night. So this time breakdown is based on a young person waking up at 7:30 a.m. and you'll see their suggested bedtimes from first year right up until leaving cert. When we consider sleep overall for our young people, there seems to be a deficiency that continues to be an issue. This is something that really needs attention. We know that lack of sleep has a profound effect on overall well-being rates, and that's evidence-based in the data, and appears to be the most significant health problem facing our teenage population in Galway and Mayo and Roscommon at the moment. It's also our most preventable health problem, and we're encouraging parents to consider sleep quality, sleep situations, the duration of sleep time, and anything that they can do to support young people around getting better sleep. We know that there's a significant amount of time that's been spent on social media that's steadily increasing, and with each survey we can see the cross tabulations between the amount of time on social media, the amount of time on phones and screens, and the quality of sleep being impaired. So the prevalence of phones in bedrooms at night time still remains very high, and that's an issue we're going to have a little look at now. So up to 80% of our 15 and 16-year-olds across the region have been self-reporting the presence of a phone in their bedroom at night time. Teens' brains are growing and developing. They need support with regulating things like phones and screen time. They don't have the core ability to moderate these skills on their own. And so we're really encouraging parents to support young people around this. When we look at our data, when we look at 80% having a phone in the bedroom at night, 55% not getting enough sleep, and up to 66% spending 3 hours or more on social media daily, we can see a direct correlation with devices and sleep quality. What we're recommending is that the person would hand up the phone and have it maybe charged up overnight outside of the bedroom. We know that phone use really needs to be boundaried with teens, and they're needing support from parents and guardians around this. There are concerns around wakefulness with the artificial blue light from devices that disrupt our natural sleep cycle or circadian rhythm, leads to difficulty falling asleep by suppressing melatonin production, and leads to difficulty staying asleep. Okay, when we have notifications pinging throughout the night from phones, when we are gaming late into the night or using social media late into the night, and indeed during the night, that acts as a brain stimulant and a real disruptor to our sleep cycle also. There were 15% of young people in our most recent Planet Youth survey that report using their phones between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. So throughout and during the night, again, significantly disrupting sleep. So when we have a little look more closely over previous surveys around that area of social media and using social media for 3 or more hours per day, we can see that the girls are using slightly more social media time there than boys, but again that it is an issue of concern that's growing, mapped over the past 7 years of survey. And then we'll look into the area of excessive use of social media, 4 hours plus. Again, we see the girls have slightly higher levels of use than boys, and two, this is an area of growing concern. So there's a direct relationship between social media and sleep quality. We're learning about the relationship between social media and well-being. The recommendations are that screen use should be kept to a maximum of 2 hours per day. So really cutting back on our young people who are reporting 3+4+ hours a day on social media. So right down to 2 hours a day as a maximum. And ideally screen time would take place after our core functions, our core activities, our homework are completed. So we're hoping that, we're aiming there for getting our good brain resources dedicated to things like homework, activities after school, physical activities, interests and hobbies. And then that screen time would come in maybe after that. That we know the screens, it's recommended that they should be off at least an hour before bedtime and kept out of bedtimes at night in order to ensure good quality sleep. It's really important that the parents are talking to their children about their online life and been a good role model themselves with their own screen time and use of phones. Just on that note, we did notice from our last survey that 20% of young people were saying that they had their first introduction or got their first phone at the age of 10 years of age or younger. So this is obviously a pattern, maybe a habit that has been building up with them over time. These are young people who are 15 and 16 who are reporting this data. So some other screen time considerations is that students on our Planet Youth survey have been reporting impacts on motivation, aggression and anxiety and withdrawal in relation to their use of social media. We can see that the more social media that's used, the greater the effect on things like self-esteem and on mental well-being. So in relation to communication and support, the good news from our survey is that 91% of teens report having good relationships, good core relationships with parents, and we are really encouraging you to build on these core skills and this good rapport to help your teen in these well-being areas of their lives. Research support services in your area, it's important that we have the information to give our young people, that we're able to signpost them to supports that they might require, and that they feel more able to access support around them if there's something they need guidance with. It's really important that we're offering opportunities for conversations around substance use regularly or any other issues that might be concerning our child. And over on our Parent Hub on our core website, you'll find lots of information, resources and support specifically around this area of drug and alcohol for your perusal. So in addition to the 91% of young people who say that they can easily access caring and warmth from a parent or guardian at home, they are saying that they also experience predominantly high levels of safety levels in their home environment, which is lovely to hear and very reassuring. We can see that young people are reporting high levels of safety overall in their surroundings and their neighbourhood, with a slight dip in terms of online use. And when they're online, they aren't feeling as safe as they are maybe at home or in their neighbourhood, and then for some in school also. Another element relating to communication and support was that in our most recent Planet Youth survey, around 40% of young people reported regularly experiencing rejection from friends and their peer group. So we know that bullying and exclusion is closely related to poor mental well-being and poor self-esteem and resilience. So we're really hoping that we can work on this area by encouraging our young people to include others, to display kindness, to be inclusive overall in their peer groups. And if you have a young person who is experiencing rejection themselves, we're encouraging young people to reach out for support and guidance around this area. So experiences of rejection were cross-tabulated with mental health, depression, self-harm and esteem, and we can see that people experiencing rejection were significantly more impacted in these areas than those who felt included. So we're encouraging teens to include others, to be kind, and to get help if they are feeling left out. To mental well-being, young people have reported that they're often looking for help. So our role as guardians, parents and adults in their lives is to signpost them to the supports that they may need, and to encourage engagement. And I think that's something crucial that we can be doing, is actively seeking out and signposting helplines, reliable, appropriate information sources, and then encouraging young people to engage with those. We know that when parents provide emotional support, set clear rules and expectations and boundaries, when they're monitoring their young person's activity, the teens are most likely to exhibit lower rates of substance use, because these are key protective factors that we develop in our young person's life. One of the key parenting factors that has improved regionally across all of the 4 surveys, as I've said, is the ease at which our young people feel they can access support and caring from their parents, and can discuss personal matters with parents and guardians. And that's really, really positive. So we're encouraging you to build on your existing skills as a parent, to add in additional protective factors for your child. We know that 1 in 8 have reported experiencing domestic violence at home, and similar numbers report parental addiction as an issue for one or both of them. So again, being aware of the importance of helping our young person to seek support and help around this issue, and being aware of our role as a role model, as a guide in our child's life too, and in relation to our behaviours and what they see, what we say, really does go in. So then we look at the area of interests and exercise. We know that from our Planet U data, our young people have reported, about 73% report good physical health, 61% say that they're exercising 3 times a week or more, and just 34% are saying that they play team sport 3 times a week or more. We know that evidence shows us that well-being and mental health are very closely related to physical activity, and we know that teens who never do any physical activity are statistically twice as likely to report poor mental health when compared to teens that do 60 minutes or more of physical activity at least once a week. When we look at this data in more detail, we can see that girls are slightly less active than boys. So it's important that we're encouraging girls to stay involved in sports. So there's some campaigns nationally in Ireland and globally around involvement in physical activity, specifically targeting and orientated around teenage girls, because of the dropout rates in this area. The World Health Organization has a campaign at the moment looking at physical health and the impact on physical activity and the impact on mental health, making the connection between our confidence levels, our mood management, our energy levels, and the message of being, mental health needs a daily dose of movement. So the importance of daily activity. So it's important that our young people are encouraged to keep engaged in quality supervised structured activities and physical activities. We know that there's a significant dropout of physical activity and sports and hobbies with the teenage girls, and we're really focusing on this area and trying to encourage young people along. We know that in community involvement and involvement in hobbies and interests outside the home are very important around developing social skills and building emotional resistance. So these are all coupled together to be significant protective factors around substance use, and indeed around antisocial behaviour in general. So you may have noticed in our Irish media over the last couple of weeks, there's been reports connecting drug use to physical activity, and there's significant research and evidence around this connection. So this is something as parents and guardians that we can encourage, and it automatically becomes a really solid protective factor around substance use. So in relation to risk and protective factors, it's important that we chat it out with our child, that we explore what's really happening for them in their lives, and that we're always striving to build protective factors in order to reduce the risk. It's important to acknowledge that there are many factors in which might lead a young person to be experimenting or using substance use, and it's not just isolated to one area or the 4 examples we're looking at today, but really this whole area of coping mechanisms, of access to substances and marketing around substances, pressure and peer influence, their natural rebellion and curiosity in teenage years. All of these factors play a role as well. So as a takeaway from our webinar on supporting teen well-being, we look at these 4 factors, again amongst others. But these are areas that we can make small movements to improve and increase risk factors around. So we can work on with our child to improve their overall health and well-being. So sleep is our most preventable health issue. Be mindful around your attitudes to substance use. What you say really does go in. Your tolerance around substance use really has an impact on your child. You're a role model for your child, so watch your drinking behaviour and your screen use too. And we're asking you to encourage activity and the exploration of new hobbies and interests with your child, if they can keep that area of physical activity going in their life. So we're remembering that everyone has risk and protective factors that play in their lives. This is not anything hugely new, but when we draw light or draw attention to the 4 factors we're talked about in this webinar, we know that we can make encouragements to advance the protective factors for our children in these areas, leading to better well-being. And we know that these protective factors will play a role around prevention of substance use. It's never too late to put protective factors in place. So think about what you can do in the area of sleep, bedtimes, maybe the sleep environment, setting up for sleep at night time, the bedroom conditions, maybe around the area of support and communication and highlighting services and support signposting that our child might need access to, looking at the area of physical activity and involvement in sports and interests, and looking at the whole area of screen time, of the time that we spend online, our behavior on social media, what our online life is like, exploring that with our teen and making small changes that can build protective factors in each of these areas. So as always in our Parent Hub series of webinars, we come back to the importance of having a conversation with our teen about their choices, about substances and the role of substances in their life. Really, really important that we're visiting these conversations regularly and that we're using the supports that are available to us to help us in this area. You'll find the Parent Power Parent Guidelines booklet over on the planetyouth.ie website, and it has some really, really important guidance for parents around the area of family time, spending time together, around the area of screen time, the screen guidelines and the bedtime guidelines, the importance of sleep overall. There's information there on hobbies and sports, on vaping, smoking, nicotine pouches and cannabis, and on alcohol and parents. So we would really recommend that you go over onto Planet Youth, download the resources available. They're available in 9 different languages for you, and have a look at some of the guidance that's there, particularly for parents of young teens. With this booklet orientated around first year parent guidelines, but there are guidelines there for parents of all teens. Just here are some links that we're sharing that might be helpful to you. The link I referenced a couple of times around our Parent Hub and where to access that. Drugs.ie have a parent's guide that's specifically helpful around this area. There's a HHC fact sheet there around synthetic cannabinoids that's really useful as well. There's the Cannabis No-Brainer digital leaflet and some vaping resources there too that we would like to highlight to you in this webinar. So you'll find our Parent Hub over on wrdatf.ie, and you'll see the Parent Hub tab on the top of our website. Click there and you'll be able to be directed in relation to the area that best suits your needs. So information is provided for parents of preteens, of teenagers, and then of adult children, so our young people over 18. And under the areas of prevention, early intervention and support and treatment. So head on over there, have a little look at what area suits you best. You'll find the information as always for all our webinars on our social media and on our YouTube channel, WRDATF video channel. You can watch back our previous webinar on teens, drug vaping and current trends. Thank you for taking the time to view this webinar. We hope it has provided some important information, up-to-date, evidence-based data and facts on well-being factors. And we are encouraging you to follow us online on our Instagram page at West RDATF, or Western Region Drug and Alcohol Task Force Facebook page, as I mentioned, our YouTube video channel and our website, in order to stay up to date